And we have, as has been discussed, offered Canada, for instance, should they choose Gripen, that and they need or want a production in Canada. That could, of course, be also one site to deliver Gripen to Ukraine from.
What if I told you that Canada has just made a defense decision that could quietly change the future of North American military power? For decades, Canada's biggest defense purchases have often been connected to the United States. American aircraft, American defense companies, American technology, and American supply chains have played a major role in Canada's military planning. But now, something very interesting has happened. Canada has moved towards Sweden's Saab GlobalEye airborne early warning and control aircraft instead of choosing American options like Boeing's E-7 Wedgetail or L-3 Harris Aeris X. At first, this may look like a normal aircraft deal, but behind the scenes, it could be much bigger than that. This decision may be the first serious sign that Canada is trying to build a defense future that is less dependent on Washington, more connected to Europe, and more focused on Canadian jobs. Canada has entered negotiations with Saab for the GlobalEye aircraft, a powerful surveillance and command platform designed to watch the skies, seas, and land from long distances. This is not a fighter jet. It does not fly into combat like an F-35 or Gripen. But in modern warfare, aircraft like GlobalEye can be just as important and sometimes even more important. Why? Because wars are no longer won only by the aircraft that fires first. They are won by the side that sees first, understands first, and acts first. GlobalEye is basically a flying command center. It can detect threats early, track enemy movement, support fighter jets, guide naval forces, and give military commanders a clear picture of what is happening before danger reaches them. In simple words, it is Canada's future eye in the sky. The biggest part of this story is not only that Canada selected Saab as the preferred option. The bigger question is who Canada did not choose. Canada had American systems available, including Boeing's E-7 Wedgetail, which is already being used or considered by important allies. But instead of automatically going with an American platform, Canada has chosen to move towards a Swedish system built on a Bombardier Global 6500 aircraft. That detail matters a lot because Bombardier is Canadian. So this is not just a foreign military purchase, it is also connected to Canada's own aerospace industry. It means Canadian workers, Canadian factories, and Canadian technology could become part of a much larger defense project. Instead of sending billions of dollars outside the country, Canada may be trying to bring some of that defense money back into its own economy. This is where the story becomes more strategic. Canada is not only buying equipment anymore. Canada is trying to build partnerships that create jobs, strengthen industry, and reduce dependence on one country. Prime Minister Mark Carney has made it clear that future defense spending should give maximum benefit to Canadian workers and Canadian businesses. That means every major military purchase will now be judged not only by how powerful the equipment is, but also by how much economic value it brings to Canada. In this sense, GlobalEye is not just a surveillance aircraft, it is a symbol of a new defense strategy. It shows that Canada wants military capability, but it also wants industrial strength, job creation, and long-term independence. The Arctic is another major reason this decision matters. Canada has one of the largest Arctic territories in the world, and the Arctic is becoming more important every year. As ice melts and new routes open, the region is attracting more attention from major powers. Russia has increased its military activity in the north, China has shown growing interest in Arctic access, and NATO countries are becoming more serious about northern defense. For Canada, protecting the Arctic is not easy. The area is huge, remote, and difficult to monitor. That is why airborne early warning aircraft are so important. A fighter jet can respond to a threat, but an aircraft like GlobalEye can detect the threat before it becomes a crisis. It gives Canada something extremely valuable: time. And in modern defense, time can be the difference between control and chaos. GlobalEye is especially important because it is not limited to one type of mission. Saab describes it as a multi-domain surveillance aircraft, which means it can monitor air, sea, and land activity from one platform. This makes it useful for Arctic defense, NATO missions, maritime surveillance, and homeland security. For a country like Canada, this flexibility is very important. Canada does not need an aircraft that works only in one environment. It needs something that can patrol the north, support allies overseas, monitor oceans, and strengthen national defense. That is why GlobalEye is getting attention not only from Canada, but also from NATO countries that are looking for replacements for older airborne warning aircraft.
And now comes the suspense. Saab is not only the maker of GlobalEye, Saab is also the company behind the Gripen fighter jet. That is why many people are now asking a very serious question. If Canada is willing to choose Saab for surveillance aircraft, could Canada also reconsider Saab for fighter jets? Canada has already been connected to the F-35 program, and the F-35 is one of the most advanced fighter aircraft in the world. It has stealth, powerful sensors, and strong support from the United States. But the Gripen offers something very different. It is known for lower operating costs, easier maintenance, flexible operations, and strong industrial partnership options. Saab has previously offered Canada major job creation and local production opportunities connected to Gripen and GlobalEye. So the question is no longer only about which aircraft is more famous. The question is, which aircraft gives Canada the best combination of military power, economic benefit, and strategic independence? This does not mean Canada has canceled the F-35. That decision is still separate, and nothing should be assumed too quickly. But the GlobalEye move has definitely changed the atmosphere. It shows that Canada is willing to look beyond the United States for major defense systems. It also shows that economic benefit and strategic partnerships are becoming central to military decisions. In the past, defense deals were often viewed mainly through the lens of military capability. But now, Canada seems to be asking bigger questions. Will this deal create Canadian jobs? Will it strengthen Canadian industry? Will it give Canada more independence? Will it help Canada build stronger partnerships beyond the United States? These questions could influence future decisions, including fighter jets, submarines, Arctic radar, and other major defense programs. For NATO, this decision also sends an important message. The war in Ukraine has shown that intelligence, surveillance, early warning, and real-time coordination are now central to modern warfare. The country that sees the battlefield first has a massive advantage. Airborne early warning aircraft can detect enemy aircraft, missile activity, ships, drones, and other threats before they become visible to ground forces. They help connect fighters, ships, command centers, and allies into one network. If Canada becomes part of a wider GlobalEye ecosystem, especially with European allies also showing interest, it could create a stronger Canada-Europe defense link. This does not mean NATO will stop relying on American systems, but it does mean the balance could slowly begin to shift.
The most important part of this story is the direction Canada seems to be taking. Canada wants stronger Arctic defense. Canada wants more domestic jobs. Canada wants to diversify its defense partnerships. Canada wants to reduce the risk of depending too heavily on one supplier or one country. And now Canada is negotiating with Saab, a Swedish company that could offer both surveillance aircraft and fighter jet options. That makes this moment much bigger than a normal procurement announcement. It may be the beginning of a new defense chapter where Canada thinks more carefully about sovereignty, industry, technology, and long-term control. So is this just an aircraft deal, or is it the first step in a much bigger shift? That is the question everyone should be asking. GlobalEye may be the aircraft in the headlines today, but the real story is about Canada's future defense identity. Will Canada continue to follow the traditional path and stay deeply tied to American military platforms, or will it build a more independent, more diversified, and more European-connected defense strategy? No one can say for sure yet, but one thing is clear. Canada's decision to move towards Saab GlobalEye has opened the door to a much bigger debate. In the end, Canada's move towards Saab GlobalEye may look like a simple surveillance aircraft purchase, but behind the scenes, it could represent something much more powerful. It could mean stronger Arctic protection, more jobs for Canadian workers, deeper ties with Sweden and Europe, and a new strategy that puts Canadian economic interests at the center of defense spending. And maybe, just maybe, This is the first chapter in a larger story about Canada's fighter jet future. The real question is not only why Canada chose GlobalEye, the real question is what Canada will choose next. Because if GlobalEye is the first step, the next decision could change everything. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, Skyjet Wings for more new updates.